everyone, and welcome to Book Review of the Vampire, the series in which my friend Leonora and I go through, so far, the books of the Anne Rice Vampire Chronicles novels, and we are currently on The Vampire Lestat, having just read through the section titled The Vampire Armand. Good evening, Leonora.
Hello, hi guys.
Can't you just go dramatically good evening once, just for the heck of it?
No.
Anyway, Derek LaRue, thank you so much, as always, for your continued support and generosity. Really do appreciate it. Hope you're having a good Sunday evening, and you enjoy the show. And before I get into what we're talking about next, who else is joining us this evening? Tony Giff. Good evening. Here I say, I can pop people up occasionally. Tony Giff, are Anne Rice books pre-Twilight nonsense? Yes, they're the Twilight of the 80s for teenagers and goth emo kids. Sure. And Kiever Dam, good evening. And thank you, Kiever Dam, for putting up the GoFundMes and fundraisers. If you guys have a chance, take a look at the top of the chat box for the fundraisers. We have fundraisers for Lisa and her boyfriend trying to pay for their little puppy's medical bills. We have a link to Maddie's deductibles for cancer treatment, so please take a look at that in particular, and also one for our friend Angry Illinoisian, who is needing some help for medical situation as well. So please take a look at that. If you can donate, please do. If you can't, that's fine, but if you can share those out on social media, that would be appreciated. Oh, also, sorry, apologies, Moonshock is also in there. I was used to a different list. Moonshock also is a excuse me, let me pause myself a second.
I can't talk.
Sorry about that. I suddenly got a frog in my throat. Out of nowhere. It was probably all the talking I was doing this morning with the Sunday stream. There's also a fundraiser there for our friend Moonshock, who is also recovering from cancer diagnosis and survivor and everything. Anyway, please take a look at those if you can. Really do appreciate it. Let's see. Anybody else here? Noah Asensio. Good evening, everyone. And also Anthem Ward. Hi, Anthem Ward. Hi, Scribe. All right. Well, for those of you that are either lurking or in the future, good evening. Let's see. With that, it sounded like before we started, Leonora, you had quite a bit to say about this section. Am I incorrect?
No, you're not.
Okay. Well, I'll let you take the lead on this one. Proceed. Well, what did you think about the Vampire Armand?
It's the most boring vampire ever. Like in the history of ever.
Yeah.
It makes me sad. Really.
Why? Why is he the most boring ever?
Because he's like a lost puppy. Like he has all this power and all this knowledge and all this everything. And he's just like looking for, for someone to be with, and all the whole chapter he's just like the only thing that he tells Lestat is, can I come with you? Why can't I come with you? I want to come with you. I want to be your friend. Come on, let's be together. I want to be with you. Why can't I go? It's terrible. I mean, it's
I had two recurring thoughts while I was reading this chapter. There's an old saying about experience in life and things, and I'll extend it. I'll modify it for Armand's sake. Armand is like 300 years old, right?
Yep.
He's got 300 years of experience as a vampire. Actually, he has 1 year of experience as a vampire 300 times.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is. Because here's the other thing too. Throughout the entirety of Interview with the Vampire, Louis is like, "Oh, Armand, you can teach me so much. I need a companion." And up to this point, Lestat is like, "Oh, Armand, you know so much. You could teach me something." And they sit down for one evening. He tells them his life story, and Lestat's like,
"Nah, you're boring."
It's like, tell me more. Tell me more about this Marius guy. I really want to meet this Marius guy. And I'm like, oh, for gosh sake. So why does he think that meeting Marius is going to be all that interesting? Marius tells him his life story, and that's it. Also, the other thing too, I kept getting confused in my mind between Magnus and Marius because we got two different M. Anyway, the short version of this entire chapter is Lestat. Actually, just to back up a little bit, as I started reading the section, the way that the narrative flowed, I could have sworn we were reading from a different character than Lestat, because it just felt different. It read different than everything prior to this that we'd been given in the voice of Lestat. So because of the title, I thought, did we switch over to Armand's perspective? Because it's very ambiguous for the first several pages as to who are we listening to. And it felt a lot more introspective, a lot more philosophical than what we'd sort of seen from Lestat previous to this. And there was mostly just narrative. There wasn't a whole lot of interaction. But yeah, for the first couple of pages, I was like, what? It just felt like it was written by a different character, let's say. But either way, Lestat encounters Armand. Armand then feeds off of Lestat at one point, and then Lestat and him are shuffled away off to their little private tower residence or something to chat for the better part of the entire chapter about who is Armand, tell me your life story. Gabrielle's there in the background kind of hovering. And we get the story of Armand, and it was just like, okay, so this unnamed master guy embraced you after having you as his slave for years and years and years. And then he was chased down by other people and disappeared and either died or didn't die, or we're not quite sure. And Armand was happy being a slave. He was like, oh, my master, I love you, my master. And then when the master went away, he sort of slipped on a banana peel and ended up being the head of a cult of his own coven. And then taking care of the coven became his proxy master. So even though he was the head of the coven was kind of the head of him. Yes. And then he just did that for the last 250 years or something. The one thing we did learn that we hadn't had specified to us before was the vampire laws.
Yeah,
that's the
only interesting thing.
Yeah,
that help you understand a lot of the things that happened prior, even on the first book. So,
let's see if I can. I don't know if I can find that or what page that was on. I should have marked that. But yeah, and again, with so many things that I'm reading in this, it just strikes me as how is White Wolf Game Company not sued into oblivion? No pun intended, but I'll take it for those of you that understand the joke. For how much Mark Reinhagen and White Wolf literally stole out of these books to make their game. The laws, the word Sabbat is in here. The idea of having these covens with their little leaders and having these different sort of political arrangements and everything. It boggles me because it's just so obviously lifted.
Well, maybe advice was paid.
I don't know.
I mean, it's just like a consultant or something. I mean, we should Google it like later to really investigate. But if it's like they just copy paste everything.
Well, it's not copy paste. I'll give you that. It's not copy paste. I mean, the laws that they put in here. Gosh, I wish I could find it. Why didn't I mark it down? I didn't mark it down. It was so obvious. It had little dashes on it and everything, and I can't. Anyway, they had things that were equitable to the masquerade, as in do not reveal yourself to human beings as a vampire. They had things like you are not allowed to kill another vampire. Do not make vampires who are of child age or in life could not take care of themselves, and things like that.
Yeah, and also now one of the rules helps us understand what happened prior, because also a law is that older vampires cannot convert humans because they are so powerful that all the power that they give the new one, it's I don't know, it's not
much.
fair. or
Well,
something like that.
it's too much power to put into the hands of someone inexperienced in living like that. And so in the Anne Rice universe, at least as currently established, uh, you become more powerful as you age, and anybody you create, the older you are, also gets a fraction of that same level of power. So the only vampires allowed to make other vampires, generally speaking, are the youngest vampires. But then at a certain point, how does that maintain itself? You know, because it's like, okay, so if only young vampires can make other vampires, then to perpetuate your species or something, you're always going to have young vampires, but the old ones can't make new ones without risking making too powerful babies. So it seems like an untenable situation to me. But then they also warn that, generally speaking, no vampire lives past about 300 years or so because they just go nuts, because nobody can handle immortality and nobody ever has, even though there are rumors of creatures that do. Like they even mentioned all these elders, like Pandora is wandering off somewhere, and Typhon is off in the Egyptian desert somewhere, and all these other super duper elders. And so there's some sort of logical contradictions in some of their rules and how it's supposed to work in this universe. But yeah, they sit down with Armand for like a night. He lays out his entire life story right there. And Lestat's already bored with him. And he's like, I want to come with you. And they're like, and both he and Gabrielle look at each other like, he's going to be totes a third wheel. Hey, Armand, you know, there's this theater down the way that could totally use a director. Hey, you know, I know you just like murdered your entire coven because they upset you, but I'm sure they'll take you back as a leader over at the theater. Like, what? Those 3 vampires came to you, Lestat, because they had nowhere to go because Armand was slaughtering the rest of the coven, and now you're going to send Armand over there to become the new theater director? And like, I'm sure they'll accept you. I mean, Nicholas isn't much of a leader, but that girl kind of is, but she won't last next to you. Okay, so Lestat is responsible for the theater of vampires as we see it in Interview with the Vampire. He basically built it all from scratch, piece by piece.
Yes.
Just so he and Gabrielle can go wandering across the globe and maybe someday come back to Paris.
Yes.
And now Lestat has got a hard-on for this Marius character who may or may not be alive somewhere, because now Marius sounds so interesting. And I'm just like, dude, if Armand bored you in one night, what do you think Marius is going to do for you? But Lestat loves Marius now because he's such a bumblebee. He's just a flower to flower. Jeez.
Also, on part of the rules, I hope you find the part. I'm sorry, I cannot help you because I'm not reading in the same language, so it's gonna be complicated. But the other part is that they mention like slightly about how a vampire needs to choose like it's gonna be like given the gift. Because there is a chance that this vampire could go wrong, and it just like got into my mind like, oh, maybe those are the vampire zombies that we
the zombie family, like the badly selected vamp. I found the rules. The rules. Okay, so rule number 1, that each coven must have its leader, and only he might order the working of the dark trick upon a mortal, i.e. making another vampire. Seeing that the methods and the rituals are properly observed. Of course, as we've seen, rituals don't really matter, but some people seem to think that they do, even though we know it's just like drain somebody till they're almost dead, then feed them your blood, and then they become a vampire. That's it. That's really all there is to it. Number 2, that the dark gifts must never be given to the crippled, the maimed, or to children, or to those who cannot, even with the dark powers, survive on their own. Be it further understood that all mortals who would receive the dark gifts should be beautiful in person, so that the
Oh, that's
insult
fair.
to God might be greater when the dark trick is done. Yeah, so this all these rules are operating under the belief that vampires are servants and children of Satan, and so they have
Hmm.
to operate antithetical to what is believed about God's creation. And so you want to insult God by making creatures that are even more beautiful as a result of this passing of the gift than God could have created. So you have to, so only the pretty people get to be vampires.
Yes.
Only the pretty people. Let's see. Rule number 3, that never should an old vampire work this magic, lest the blood of the fledgling be too strong. For all our gifts increase naturally with age, and the old ones have too much strength to pass on. Injury, burning, these catastrophes, if they do not destroy the child of Satan, will only increase his powers when he is healed. Okay, so if I was a gamer, like I was doing a tabletop role playing game, right, and I was told, okay, your character, the older you get, the more powerful you become, and as long as you don't die from burning, you'll get
Hmm.
more powerful for the healing. And I'd be like, oh, okay. And then every night I'd tell the storyteller, I'd be like, I'm taking one of those like extendable, like stove lighter things, and I'm just going to keep burning my hand every night before I
Yeah,
go to
kill me a little bit.
sleep. Yeah, just a little bit.
Go
I'll
on,
hurt
go on.
myself just a little every night for eternity, and I'll get stronger and stronger and stronger. And I'll be like, no, that's not how it works. But it just said in the rules you could do like, but that's no, you have to like have your whole body like okay, well then I'll get a tanning bed and turn it up really high every night. Oh Jesus, no. That is the kind of thing that people would pull on me if I was running a game of Vampire the Masquerade. I'm glad that rule is not part of it because that is just cheating. Let's see. The age of the old ones have too much injury. Yeah. These. Powers. Yet Satan guards the flock from the power of old ones, for almost all, without exception, go mad. So that was rule number 3. Rule number 4, that no vampire may ever destroy another vampire except that the coven master has the power of life and death over all of his flock. So that's carried over into the masquerade game with the prince of the city. There is one vampire in every city who is basically the only one who can arbitrate life and death amongst vampires. So that kind of carries over. And I suppose in the Sabbat, nah, there's not really. I suppose the Archbishop sort of, but not really. Anyway, I could go on, but I'd be a big nerd if I kept going on. I'm not a nerd, am I? Yes, I am. Let's see. Number 5, that no vampire shall ever reveal his true nature to a mortal and allow the mortal to live. No vampire must ever reveal the history of the vampires to a mortal and let the mortal live. No vampire must commit to writing the history of the vampires or any true knowledge of vampires, lest such a history be found by mortals and believed. And a vampire's name must never be known to mortals, save from his tombstone, and never must any vampire reveal to mortals the location of his or any other vampire's lair. And so in one way, shape, or form, if the book in the book's universe is true, then whoever wrote the vampire or the interview with the vampire, or potentially Louis himself, has violated so many rules.
Yeah, everyone just keeps violating rules, like in this series, like like left and right. They don't care anything.
Well, of course, not everybody who's a vampire is part of this particular religion. Let's say.
Yeah, sure.
So these rules are sort of like fundamentalist Christian rules for how to operate on a Sunday. Mm-hmm. Whereas, anybody else can call themselves a Catholic and, do whatever they want on a Sunday, including work. So, that's the biggest thing that we learned from this is that Armand is a lonely little boy who just wants a mommy and a daddy to take care of him. That he doesn't know. He seems so. He's very powerful. He's very old. He's very imposing. But at his heart, he is a subservient. He wants to be taken care of. He wants other people to guide him. And so basically what was happening with the coven, when he was the master's servant, back when Marius or something was alive, he was the submissive. Then when he became the Coven Master, he was bottoming from the top, if that makes any sense to those of you that know that terminology. And so, yeah, he was having the Coven. He was faking it till he made it, except he never wanted to make it. He was just, this is my responsibility now, and so I will now assume the role of the Coven Master. And if I don't have the Coven to justify my existence, then I might as well just burn them all to death, which is what he did. After 10 minutes of Lestat saying, hey, you guys don't have to live like this. We don't? It's like, oh, caramba. If you stop and think about actually the chain of events between all of these characters in such a short amount of time, it's like, how did you guys survive for hundreds of years with ever asking the question, do we have to operate like this? Can't I take a bath occasionally?
And with that leader.
Yeah.
Because
Armand completely stuck in the past, unable to do anything or go anywhere or allow anything. And yeah. I guess if the threat was, if you don't do what I say, then I'm going to send you to the fire, maybe that would keep people in line. But at the same time, it's like, okay, well, Lestat says one thing, everybody goes rebel. He then effectively murders half the Coven, or more than half the Coven. 3 vampires survive. They're like, oh, now we'll be actors in a theater. It's just such, I just stop and think, like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, if you really mean to destroy all that you've made because it's ruined for you now and it doesn't work anymore, what sense does it make to send this same person off to the people that upset him?
Yep.
I'm like, how do you know he's not just going to, like, and how do you know anything he's telling you is true to begin with? I mean, you've got a 300-year-old monster who's more concerned about whether or not he is the right kind of evil, and you're gonna. It just, I don't know. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, and it's weird because, like, when he's telling his story, when he just started on this, like, Satan worship, whatever, he got like this like power in this, like, pyramid of vampires, because he was like, he demonstrated to be like a great killer and to be like super convincing, and that's why he was given the task to like take the gospel all across Europe and whatever. And then in the last part is like this, like, lost puppy and like a small character with no like force in it. So I was like, what is happening? Even if in the first book, I mean, we knew about Armand like very little, but still you had this image of a powerful character, like strong and wise, and in in the last pages of this chapter is just nothing. Is
okay.
Terrible.
First, yeah, the another phrase that came to mind when looking at Armand is out of Texas. It's called all hat, no cattle. It's like he's all talk and nothing else. The other thing I have to at least allow for is the Armand we're seeing conceivably in Interview with the Vampire is at least another 100 years old or something at this point, I think, or something. And he's been doing the theater thing for a while, so he might be a different character. All the same, as soon as he and Louis' relationship kind of fizzles, he just kind of walks off. So, oh, wait a second. Random American says, Sabat says, screw your rules. Yeah, sure they do. Yeah, the Sabat doesn't have any rules at all. Yeah, they don't have the masquerade, except they also understand the pragmatism of not telling mortals that they exist, because the Inquisition will come and burn them out of their covens. Yeah, the Sabat says, screw your rules. We've got our own. But Yeah, and again, the big question mark is, all right, well, the characters as portrayed in Interview with the Vampire, since it's an in-universe book that might
Hmm.
be sensationalized, how accurate are these things? Well, so far we keep having little pieces lead up to things that match up in the first book, as in Armand's the head of the Theater of the Vampires, and Lestat and Armand have a history together, and so on and so forth. But yeah, I mean, yeah, the Armand we see in Interview is someone who has become bored with the group and the situation he's been in for however many years he's been doing it, and Louis is the anchor to the new age, and he
Hmm.
can come out of his shell and he can start exploring into the world because Louis is this, oh my gosh, he's so amazing, and oh, he's just so advanced compared to all the other vampires and things. um but yeah, it is kind of difficult to see how you get from somebody who's acted like uh just been playing leader for 300 years while at heart being a scared little kid, changing into this imposing, masterful, gravitas, mind reading leader of the coven of vampires that we see in Interview with the Vampire, and not just completely become subservient to Louis, who obviously has a much more dynamic personality and philosophy than Armand has.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't know, maybe it's a codependency thing. It's hard to tell. But even then, in Interview with the Vampire, Armand doesn't seem to care so much uh, that Louis is the product of Lestat, or that well, he would let Claudia die anyway, I guess. Yeah. But the whole like Children of Satan thing, I don't remember that coming up in Interview with the Vampire, but maybe I'm forgetting. I
No.
guess I guess Armand did have that little painting above his bed that was of the devil, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, so there's little hints of things that kind of carry over that didn't get into. But anyway, so yeah, the end of this chapter is basically Lestat now has a man crush on the idea of Marius, even though in the story that Armand relays, I don't really feel like we know much about Marius that would make Lestat so curious. Like, he's just another old vampire, just like Armand is an old vampire. And you were expecting to get something out of Armand, and all he gave you was, "This is my life," and boy, okay, thanks for that, goodbye. And you've been told the rules of how to live as a vampire, but these only seem to apply to this one sort of cult of Satan children.
Yes.
Does that mean they apply across the globe? Who established these rules, etc.? And then the rumors of the super duper ancients, who are basically like godlings wandering the earth in different parts of the world as legendary figures. The one in particular that got me going was the vampire named Typhon, who is
Hmm.
wandering Egypt because there's a whole clan of vampires in Vampire the Masquerade called the Followers of Set, who's another Egyptian god. They don't think that they don't think that they're vampires. They think that they are children of this super duper cobra snake god of Egypt. So their fangs aren't fangs of bats; they're fangs of a snake, basically, plus other things. But anyway, so Gabrielle and Lestat talk Armand into going over to the Theater of Vampires and taking over as the theater director. And then Lestat and Gabrielle are like, well, we're going to leave our tower. Armand, here's a bunch of money just so you can take care of yourself for a little bit. And let's see. In the chat real quick. Scribe it. The rules are a retcon. Which rules? The Sabbat rules? I don't know. I mean, originally, yeah, the Sabbat weren't given that much detail, but like as people started to get really interested in them, they established in the Player's Guide to the Sabbat, second ed and third ed is the best ed, as far as I'm concerned, if that's what you're talking about. And if you're so mentally weak, then how was Armand survived all these years? Well,
Exactly.
he's not mentally weak. That's not it. It's just that he's been playing a role throughout this time. Like he was subservient to his master, and his master effectively left him with the responsibility of carrying on in his absence. And so he's operating out of obligation, not out of talent or desire. And also because people are deferring to him because he's old, because he's the child of Marius, and so on. So he's kind of like the reluctant king who everybody looks to for advice and guidance, and he's just kind of I'm just assuming he play acted it well enough that people believed it, and he just that was his in a way he's still fulfilling his master's command rather than being a leader of his own desire and ability. He is fulfilling his master's command, and so the coven is an extension of his subservience to his master. So he's not mentally weak. He's just, as far as his personality is concerned, it's very codependent, and he doesn't have ambition. His ambition is tied to whoever he sees as his superior. And Lestat walks in, a child of a different age, a child of a different attitude, someone who has shown that all the rules he was told are nonsense. And so now Armand can't help but feel like he has to defer to this superior being. Even though he's a younger vampire than he is, he obviously can operate in a way that he just can't. And so that's where he's sort of trying to transfer his dependency. But
no, I mean, I get it. I get it. He totally hates it. Like it's clear. Like in the book, I think it even says he hates it. Like he hates this thing. Right. He was super happy being with his with Marius and just like doing the paintings and whatever. He was super happy then, and then with this Satan thing, he hates it. I get it. Yeah. But I mean, if you're gonna be there like for eternity, basically, and you have all this like now strength because of the years and all this knowledge, I think that you would like try to make the best of it, Yeah,
like I said,
does not.
Well, like I said before, it's
boring.
1 year experience times 300, and you get caught in a rut, and you just whatever, or maybe he didn't realize his weakness to a superiority or something until he was challenged, because nobody ever really challenged him to that point. So we didn't have to think about it. And then, of course, Lestat comes along and surprises him. Real quick, Assassin of the Grey again. No, Anne Rice's rules are a retcon. She did not think of them before writing it. I can completely believe that. And I also think that's partially why she made Interview with the Vampire an in-universe book, because that allows her, as a storytelling device, to say that the book that we read as people, as exists in this world, is not the rule book. It is an interpretation of things written through a secondary party. So we can't take anything that we quote unquote learned in the first book as fact for the universe of the vampires. It's a creative-ish, but also cheap escape hatch for Anne Rice that she doesn't have to stick to all the world building she did in the first book. The question is, you only get to do that once. As we proceed through these books, if she constantly changes the rules, if she constantly introduces some Deus Ex Machina stuff or retcons everything, that just shows that, yeah, she didn't plan this out very well. You got to leave yourself enough hooks and enough mystery, even for yourself. Like it's rare that I would expect any writer to have everything figured out in their world ahead of time. Especially when you're dealing with magic and the supernatural, unless you set some pretty hard and fast rules that you're never going to break. I could see someone coming up with an idea that violates the rules as previously established. And you can do that as long as you build up to it, as long as you create an explanation that still works within the universe you've established. I think I mentioned this in a previous stream on this series, how Robert E. Howard, he created an entire fake world history of pre-cataclysm Earth for use in his Conan stories. Like he figured out, like, this is the map of the world. Here's where these countries are in this, big Pangea kind of situation of the continents being pushed together. And so these people operate like this, and this country's populated by these creatures, so that as he's sitting there going like, okay, now I'm going to have Conan have an adventure in this part of the world. He already has a history written for that part of the world, so he knows what Conan's going to encounter. It won't violate the established laws that he's put down or the world that sits there. So he's already built the sandbox, and then he just decides what story to tell within that sandbox. Anne Rice, like I said, the time between the first book and this book was about 10 years or so. And so the idea that she might have like had better ideas or changed her mind about some things, yeah, she just as a reader, I will allow her, because I'm a magnanimous individual like that. I will allow her this one escape hatch for everything we thought we knew about vampires from the first book, if that was meant to be a wink and a nod towards this is somebody's interpretation told through a secondary guy, and it exists in this universe and doesn't actually count per se. Okay. Well, now that you've told us how vampires work, let's see if that persists. But the psychology of Armand, I get. Okay, you've got this godling who is in fact just a child looking for a parent, ultimately. And I can kind of understand that psychology persisting even in something as powerful and as ancient as a vampire. Okay. How that same psychology, having done all the evil things he's done over the years and having absolutely no humanity whatsoever and everything else, operates when he's going to go back and take over a theater populated by at least half of people that he already hates because they destroyed his little world, I don't know. But obviously, eventually, if we are to take anything we learned from Interview with the Vampire for granted, Armand changes his mind about certain things because we see characters like Santiago wandering through the city, dressed in regular clothes and interacting with mortals. Mm-hmm. So conceivably, Lestat had an effect on how Armand is going to run his second coven, all of 3 days after burning to death his first coven. That worked out so well. But yeah, aside from that, I don't know that I've got anything else to add. Anything else occurs to you, Leonora?
No, like the chapter finishes with Lestat and I forgot her name.
Gabrielle.
Yes, Gabrielle making plans for leaving.
Vampire Mommy.
Yes, Vampire Mommy.
Yeah, Vampire Mommy really wants to travel the world and do all these other things, and they're going on what they're calling the proverbial Devil's Road, which I'm still not quite sure I understand what that's supposed to mean, except that they're learning how to be better monsters, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, the next section's called On the Devil's Road from Paris to Cairo. So Lestat and Mommy are off to the land of pyramids and sphinxes. Conceivably, or at least ostensibly also, Lestat is looking for Marius, which he says, Marius, the Ancient One, Lestat is searching for you. It is the month of May in the year 1780, and I go south from Paris towards Lyons. Please make yourself known to me. Because Lestat is going to leave this message in a bottle carved into a wall at an abandoned village in Paris, or just outside of Paris, on the chance that maybe Marius, this maybe ancient vampire who may or may not still be alive, will just happen to wander by sometime in an era where that wall is still there.
Hey, that's for me.
Yeah, it's like, graffiti on the inside of a bathroom stall.
Exactly.
Marius, for a good time, call Lestat. Yeah, so anyway, that's where we're at with that. Yeah, not the most exciting chapter. Felt very out of place in a lot of ways. Really contradicted. I can't get over the fact that, like, all these vampires are falling in love with it. Like, oh, Louis sees Armand as this, and Armand sees Louis as that, and Lestat sees Armand as this. And then you talk to him for 10 minutes like, well, that was fun, bye.
Yeah, everybody falls in love with everybody, and they just fell out of love with everybody like that quickly.
Now, and again, if I'm being generous, and I'm being very generous tonight, I can kind of understand that, because sometimes your idea of a person or your idea of attaining a thing is greater than actually knowing someone or getting that thing, right? The anticipation is more exciting than the actual result.
Mm-hmm.
I can kind of get that, except that, really, Armand, that's all you've got to say. That's all Lestat needs to know from you, and then they're done with you. Like Gabriel, and like, yeah. I think maybe the big turnoff was, will you be my parents? Like, no.
No.
It's like Gabriel's like, I was a mother my whole life. I'm done with that.
Yes.
Now I have my boy toy, who's also my son.
Yeah, and now Gabrielle is the most interesting character, for me at least. Like,
and she says the
she
least.
knows perfectly what she wants to do. Like, she understands perfectly her situation, what, like, all the resources that she has, and that she's not gonna spend any time, like, feeling bad for her or anyone else, and she just wants to travel the world.
Well,
it's fantastic.
She's just adult Claudia. Let's be honest. For the most part here, we have adult. Like, if Claudia wasn't fretting over being trapped in a 5-year-old's body, this is adult Claudia.
Mm-hmm.
Because Gabrielle is just, yes, I'm dead. I'm a vampire. I love being what I am. I want to be free. I want to travel. I want to do these things. And she is going to get sick of Lestat pretty quick.
Yes.
I mean, this little Parisian interlude might have been necessary and everything. And of course, he's still her son and all the sentiment there. But I mean, if Lestat continues to behave as we've seen in the book, and even to a remnant of what we saw in Interview with the Vampire, Gabriel's going to be like, honey, I think it's time I cut the umbilical cord for good. So bye.
Yeah, and
it just disappears.
And I think she even says it, like, somewhere in the chapter, like for now we're good, and we
Yes.
we work well, but
Yes.
who knows what would happen tomorrow. Like, she's leaving, like, the door super open.
Well, she's being realistic. She's being realistic because, if anything, Gabrielle's own life story at this point teaches her that nothing lasts forever.
Mm-hmm.
So, So,
and
Gabrielle
they are gonna be forever. So,
yeah, of all the characters so far, Gabrielle's the most level-headed and straightforward and pragmatic of everybody.
mm-hmm.
So she probably has the best chance of surviving. Although we already know Lestat survives into the modern nights. So
yes.
Anyway, that's that. Yes, the next chapter again is part 6, On the Devil's Road from Paris to Cairo. It runs...
It's a short one.
It's a relatively short section. Yeah, we're going to do it section by section, whether it's short or not.
Yes.
So we're going to do that for next week. Any final thoughts? Or is that all we got, do you think?
Well, I just hope that we forget about Armand. Like,
well, until we get to we have a whole novel called The Vampire Armand at one point, don't we?
Yeah, but at least, for now, because like I said, I just was like, ugh.
Yeah, and this was the
boring.
Least vampire. It was the least vampire. Like, it's just fretting over things and whining, and oh, my life is so hard. And like, oh, great. Ugh.
Yeah,
anyway.
and sometimes Louis, like, got to us, like, why are you so whiny, and why are you so, like, sentimental, and why are you so? Oh my God, this one takes the prize.
Maybe that's why Louis and Armand fell in love with each other so much. They're just such.
Yeah.
They're both wine snobs.
Yeah.
Wines. Anyway, everyone, thank you guys so much for joining us this evening. I've been invited onto another stream in about 15 minutes over on Midnight's Edge.
He's a busy guy.
I'm a busy guy. I'm a popular guy. What can I tell you? So go check out Midnight's Edge, the little weekend review thing, Midnight's Edge After Dark that Tom Connors is putting on. I'm going to be a panelist on there talking about movies here in a few minutes. You'll find us here next Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern for the next episode of Book Review of the Vampire. So read along with us for part 6 on the Devil's Road from Paris to Cairo. Also, programming note, I did the Sunday stream this morning talking about an article that Sister Scribe recommended to me. It turned out really interesting. So if you're curious about that, take a look at that. She even called me after listening to half of it and was like praising me and also telling me things and her opinions on stuff. And I was like, you should listen to the rest of the stream because I say those very same things. She's like, you do? I'm like, yes. Oh, okay. And she went away. Family. And of course, on Thursdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, TED Excellence, where I'll look at off-brand TED Talks, which is always fun. Anyway, everybody, hope you all enjoyed the stream. If I missed your comment in the chat, please leave it down below. Also, leave a like on the way out if you would. Appreciate that. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things. Even though everyone here is so well-behaved, you have very little to do. Everybody who donated, either to myself or to the GoFundMes and other fundraisers at the top of the chat box, thank you guys so much for your generosity. Leonora, thank you for joining me, as always.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
And everyone, hope you have a good rest of your Sunday. Hope you have a good week ahead of you. Hope you're all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon. And I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.